Electric cars. They are not everyone's cup of tea, but I think this vehicle might have the broadest appeal of them all. This is the 2025 Hyundai Ioniq 5N, and not only is it spacious and comfortable and relatively efficient, I've averaged 3 miles per kilowatt hour in my time with this vehicle, which would equate to about 231 miles of all-electric driving. That's not too shabby when you consider the fact that this car makes 601 horsepower and 545 pound-feet of torque. But above all of that is the way you drive this car. You can easily forget that it even is an EV. In a world saturated by performance appearance packages that add no performance, it can be hard to tell the difference. This is the real deal though, and you'll identify an Ioniq 5N by its N badging. One around front, one around back, and one at each wheel. Relatively subtle, but I think I like it all the more for its subtlety. I've always been a fan of the way the Ioniq 5 looks, and this N with its 21-inch rims and the knowledge that it has over 600 horsepower underneath really makes it sexy. What I really like about the appearance of this car is that Hyundai leaned into the hot hatch aesthetic. The Ioniq 5 has always kind of blurred boundaries on whether it's an SUV or whether it's a hatchback. It has the size and weight of an SUV, but for this N trim level, it sits a bit lower, and I love these body-colored fender flares that really helps achieve that hot hatch aesthetic that I'm a fan of, and that makes this car, I think, more desirable. Sitting in the back of the Ioniq 5N, you can see why this vehicle has such a broad appeal, because even though you have all of that added performance, you don't lose any practicality. I'm 6'2", sitting behind my ideal driving position. I have so much knee room, enough foot room, and when I sit upright, still enough headroom. This chair both reclines and slides forward in case you want to store more stuff in the back, but there is plenty of legroom, and it's a really comfortable, it's a pretty deep recline when you put it all the way back. You also get a pair of cup holders, 2 USB-C charging outlets, no map pockets on the back of the front seats, but that's okay, they're really cool, and bucket seats. And overall, it's just very spacious and practical back here. So those in the back will find no reason to complain that this performance vehicle has a compromised rear seats, because it doesn't, nor will anyone up in the front. Now, the only thing you might find issue with is that this $67,000 vehicle, yes, this is $67,000, does have manual seats, but they are nice bucket seats that are very supportive, so I'm not too peeved about that. You have dual 12.3-inch displays like most modern Hyundais, separate climate controls, a wireless charging pad, heated and cooled seats. Even though they are manual, they are still heated and cooled, a heated steering wheel with a lot of buttons on it. We have 2 different N buttons for customizable drive modes. We have a separate drive mode button to cycle through the normal drive modes, and we have an NGB button, which brings you into your N Grin Boost mode, which is basically your fastest mode, and it disables traction control, and it gives you a customized display in the digital driver's display. This is pretty similar to Hyundai's normal Ioniq 5. It is dark themed, which I prefer. Everything on the normal Ioniq 5 is much brighter. Even the software is brighter. This is all darker, and the steering wheel has been slightly updated. I believe all 2025 Ioniq 5s will be getting a more similar steering wheel and color scheme to this Ioniq 5N. This is a 2025 model year. Although I must note that the one thing that this Ioniq 5N doesn't get that all other 2025 Ioniq 5s get is an NACS charging port, so a Tesla charging port. This still has CCS, the old school style. I believe that Hyundai will be changing that shortly, but this vehicle came out before all the other 2025 model year Ioniq 5, so that's why this one doesn't have it when those do. I do think maybe like a 2026 Ioniq 5N will have that charge port. But sitting up here, we discovered the biggest reason why the Ioniq 5N has such broad appeal, both for families, both for people who just like fast EVs, and for those who are hesitant about getting an EV because they'll miss what a gas vehicle can offer you in terms of a driving experience that an EV cannot. That's right, the Ioniq 5N is the only EV currently on sale that you can rev. And even when I'm not revving, there's a little idle coming in through the speakers. Yes, it's fake. Yes, it's simulated. But this car takes it further than any other vehicle does that has fake noise that can be pumped into the cabin to give you that audio sensation of acceleration. There are paddle shifters on this car. In most EVs, paddle shifters let you adjust your level of regenerative braking, and that's true for the Ioniq 5N. But another function they have is to act as paddle shifters. If you switch into the manual mode, you can then shift gears by yourself. the car will simulate a manual transmission shifted by paddle shifters. What's more is that it will physically limit your acceleration until you upshift. You will stop at about 40 miles an hour until you upshift, and it will rev off, bang off the rev limiter until you upshift, and then you will get more power. It is the wildest experience ever. Now I am at a stop in the manual mode, and if I floor it, it will bang off the rev limiter. I'm in first gear. It's not letting me accelerate any further, even though I have my foot all the way down until I upshift, and then you get another burst of power until 68. It's absolutely insane, and then you get fake crackles and pops. Oh my god. That's so funny. So that in and of itself is just absurd that you're able to do that. But even crazier, you feel the shifts. There is a slight jolt that goes through the cabin. The same feeling you get when you actually make a shift in a gas car, as if the car is momentarily moving from one gear to the next, and you are in that period in between, like you have the clutch pressed in if it was an actual stick shift. It's really cool. They've done a great job simulating it. And when you are going at a speed, I'm in third gear right now going 40 miles an hour, and I were to downshift, it goes up down to second gear and brings the RPMs up, and it increases the regenerative braking as if I'm engine braking. Going down to first gear, the car slows down even more. So it does a really great job simulating that you are driving a gas car, and it's able to do that with all of the features that an electric car has. It's able to use regenerative braking like it's an engine braking. They've added in that slight jarring effect when you shift from one gear to another. It's really impressive. And you get some added crackles and pops. Those are a little cheesy, I will admit. Those are not quite as refined, I would say, as the engine note is, the fake engine note exhaust. There are three exhaust notes that you can choose from. This one that I have right now is called Ignition, and it is the most traditional sounding. All right, but let's come to a stop here. Let's activate N-Grin Boost. Let's floor it. Struggle for traction for a second, but oh my god, then we really rock it forward. I was going very much uphill there. And, well, we entered an order of magnitude more than I expected us to enter in terms of the speed. But let's go back into a manual mode and just floor it. Holy mother of mothers, this car is fast. And last thing I'm gonna do on this little run, like a private racetrack, not really, but grin, an N grin. Oh, and it's got even the crackles on the upshifts. This car, again, you feel its weight when you really push it in the corners, but God is it fast, and God is it fun. Even though this car is so much fun to drive, and it does put a smile on my face as I drive it, it's still no canyon carver. Carving canyons with it right now, it doesn't really feel at home here. It still leans in the bends, even though it does have upgraded suspension and upgraded tuning for this setting. There's no masking the fact that this is basically a compact crossover. That is what the Hyundai Ioniq 5, the category that the Hyundai Ioniq 5 competes in, and even though this one has over 600 horsepower, you still feel that weight. It does not feel very planted. Now when I put my foot down, oh my God, does it really rocket off the line. And so it can accelerate, and I'd say the brakes are pretty good too, accelerate and decelerate really quickly. Changing directions isn't necessarily the most thrilling experience in this Ioniq 5N. And it's a little disappointing. I really wanted this to be that full-on enthusiast package, and I think for an EV, it gets as pretty much as far as I felt. Obviously, if there was a sedan version of this vehicle, which there is, it's called the Hyundai Ioniq 6, that would have a slightly lower center of gravity to start with, and that might actually help make this car a bit more dynamic around the corners. I'm in a neighborhood now, so I'm not going to be chucking this thing. Oh, there's an Urus. But this vehicle, being the more compact crossover that it is, doesn't really deliver that. And that's just a little disappointing. I wanted this vehicle to be a bit more naturally athletic than it is, but the chassis of this car really isn't built for these really windy roads, and you can't really use all the power on these roads. So I guess it's not necessarily a canyon carving enthusiast vehicle. It is really fun to be able to shift your own gears. That just puts a smile on my face. It's so funny, it's so unexpected from an EV, and to get that sound, and this car looks so good, and it is so fast. So all of that checks boxes in my opinion. But just know it isn't necessarily the full-on enthusiast vehicle it might be advertised as, because it still does lean quite a bit in the bends. Now, in terms of other driving dynamics, this is just like every other Hyundai Ioniq 5. These seats are a bit different. They're more buckety. They are manual, so you are spending $76,000 or $67,000, sorry, and getting manual seats. But that's really the only thing that changes in that way. There's a lot of space in the second row. It's fairly comfortable and quiet in here, even with these 21-inch rims and the more performance-oriented suspension. It still is really smooth. You could easily have the Ioniq 5N as your daily driver. You are not sacrificing too much comfort from the regular Ioniq 5 when you go to the N. You're just getting a lot of performance and a lot of fun. So that's the 2025 Hyundai Ioniq 5N. This vehicle is bonkers fast, so much fun to drive, all while still being a comfortable and easy daily driver. It's not quite as dynamic as I would have hoped on a tight, twisty road, but at 4,800 pounds, there's not really all that much you can do. Knowing what Hyundai is capable of, I would love for them to create a small, all-electric sports car to truly show what EVs can do. That wouldn't be as popular of a car. It's why they launched the 5N first, because this is a compact crossover. More people are willing to buy it. But I think that would be a vehicle that would genuinely convince enthusiasts that EVs can still be fun. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.